Alright, thanks for joining me again on another Into the Breach unfair squad guide tutorial. Not sure what to call these yet exactly, but we'll be doing a 4-island playthrough on unfair difficulty. We're starting with the Riftwalkers, the starting squad, and a fresh Ralph Carlson as our pilot. So it's just a blank slate, and you'll be seeing some of the fundamentals. So first of all, we need to examine what each of the islands is offering us here at the very beginning. So Riftwalkers, we've got good forced movement, and we've got decent damage, at least out of the gate. Our main weakness is mobility. So, got, let's see, the Armor Scion on Detritus. That's not a big deal. Health Scion on Archive. So I pick Pinnacle because the Vec variety is not the worst in the world, and the spider egg-laying Scion is really irritating. So I'm trying to get it out of the way early. So a bit of a gamble, but we'll see if it pays off. Also, picking Pinnacle early is usually a good idea because they will always force you to do this particular mission. It's just the way that the island map is laid out. So here I am, I'm examining the array of starting Vec, and what I would like to do is try to bait as many of them as possible into attacking my mechs. So positioning is very important at the beginning of a mission. My hope is that the gastropod alphas will target my mechs, and there's no buildings behind them, so I can safely move them out of the way. And it looks like my bait was very lucky. It paid off 100%, and I really only have to worry about that single scarab targeting the grid. I just kill the Scion right away. That way I don't have to worry about the spider eggs. And using the artillery mech, I can get a little bit of damage on the board and prevent a Vec spawn and protect the grid. So it's a nice multi-action choice there. So a pretty decent first round. My mechs are in a good position. I even have the Gastropod Alpha destroy the robot that spawned. This particular mission type can be a pain, the protect the robot factories. You know, it's always spawning extra weak enemy forces. But this was a pretty decent map seed, all things considered. I've only got 2 threats to the grid here again, actually 3. If I can kill that gastropod that's targeting the cannon mech, then that's a problem I don't have to worry about. So, looking at my options, I've got 3 threats to the grid and 3 actions with my mechs. So hopefully I can use 3 actions, get a perfect solve. That weakened Alpha Gastropod was easy pickings for the cannon mech. So once again, I'm in the clear with 2 weak scarabs on the board, about to be 1. So just 2 enemies on the board on this turn. Means I'm in real good shape. So here we are at the penultimate turn. Any Vec spawns you can prevent on this turn means you've got just that much less to worry about on the final round. You can see the combat mech's limited mobility as a hindrance here. If I had one more move, I could plug that hole and destroy that robot. I don't think I will be that fortunate. But I've got at least 1 spawn being prevented with the cannon bot, and it looks like the smart play is just to park it there and take out the scarab. Hindsight being 2020, I could have used the artillery mech to push the robot onto the Vex spawn. We have a weird, interesting thing here where Ralph levels up very quickly. And he just got Popular Hero. So it's kind of a positive and a negative. It means that I don't want to use Ralph anymore, because I just want to bench him. Then I can sell him for 4 reputation at the end of the island. So I'll be down a pilot, but if I play my cards correctly, I will be ahead of the curve at the end of the island, as far as upgrades are concerned. That's an easy solve for the first mission. Pretty painless. No damage to the grid. I like to try and play these seeking a perfect game. That's a final score of 40,000. My 40k still eludes me with the Riftwalkers. And I don't succeed on this particular run. But I try to keep it going as long as possible. So I bench Ralph, and then I put another pilot into the combat mech, since it's a good source of experience. I leave the artillery mech empty, because it usually doesn't get kills. It's more just for positioning and utility. So looking at the missions available to me now, it's always a good idea on Unfair to observe the map. See, how favorable the map terrain is. See how many enemies are spawning. Sometimes you can see what is spawning. And also the mission type is very relevant. So I'm trying to decide between protect the coal plant with shields active, or this other mission at the shielded vaults. But it looks like I pick protect the coal plant. Oh yeah, less than 3 grid damage, protect the coal plant. So they're functionally the same mission. Just this one is a little bit more of a favorable map, and we have the nice shields up to save us a little bit of headache. It's also a good idea to try and get the grid to maximum charge, so you can start, hopefully, charging up grid defense if you need it in an absolute emergency. So I've got, again, the Spiderling spawning Scion, Scarab, a Mosquito, and 2 robots. So not a terrible op-4 here at the very beginning. Trying to position my mechs such that I will bait the enemy into attacking them and not the grid, if at all possible. So I'm looking at the artillery bot, trying to predict its movements. Most of the action you'll see is the enemy kind of coming up around the northeast side of this board on this particular map seed. So we've got 2 successful baits, which is always good, and 2 threats to the grid. What I would like to do is kill the Spiderling Scion as quickly as I can. And there are multiple valid solves to this particular turn. So what I believe I do is I go for artillery mech. Artillery mech can do a double here. Yes, I can destroy the robot threatening the grid and damage the mosquito. I actually could have done a more efficient solve there. Hindsight being 20/20. But it looks like I just accept losing a shield. I could have struck the mosquito directly. It would have pushed the missile robot back, and the missile robot would have been able to finish off the remainder. But it's okay. We're still in good shape. We've got 3 threats to the grid, 2 of which are shielded, so we've only really got to pay attention to 1. I decide to prevent a Vex spawn. Then the robots are always easy to destroy. And we've got a clean second turn. We'll have 3 new Vec to deal with. We get an alpha, 2 alpha gastropods. Gastropods usually aren't that bad. Here we've got a fun trick we can do. See how quickly I see it. Gastropod 3 is threatening the grid, but I can punch it to target its ally. And since its ally is on cracked ice, it'll insta-kill it. So it's netting me a free kill. It's always good to have the enemy work for you, if you can. I push my own combat mech to plug a Vex spawn. So I'll only have 2 enemies to deal with on the final turn. Again, it's very important to note the timing of enemy actions. I was just lucky that that particular gastropod was acting just before the other one. And we've got a clean end to this mission here. We've still got perfect score. The grid is topped off, and we lucked out with the time pod. And we get our first big lucky break of the run, boosters. A beautiful weapon. One of the weaknesses of the Riftwalkers is mobility and general utility, and the boosters give you the whole package. It's mobility, it's offense, it's defense, it's forced movement. It's great. I immediately slap it on the cannon mech. And then my first core goes to the combat mech, which is what I usually do, and I like to place it into movement. It just extends the range and the threat of the combat mech. Some people like to invest their first core on the building's immune upgrade for the artillery mech, but I typically avoid it. I find oftentimes that smart play and wise map selection lets you just ignore targeting the grid itself. There's only a handful of times on this run that I would have, that I missed having that upgrade. So now we're doing the Defend the Robots mission. A little bit risky, but the rest of the maps were looking also kind of dicey to me. Sometimes you get lucky on this mission, and the enemy will freeze themselves on the cryo mines that the robots leave behind. So I've got an interesting array of enemies here at the beginning, and the annoying spider egg spawning Scion. Once again, seeing if I can predict the enemy movement and try to bait them. The mosquitoes are worrisome. They're flyers, and they can basically go wherever they want. I'm becoming increasingly concerned about the lone grid building. And I'm hoping that I can bait the gastropod into attacking my own mechs. But it's not guaranteed. I'm trying to figure out whether the position of the artillery mech increases the chance of the gastropod attacking my mechs or not, and I commit to that particular spread. So the friendlies move, and just as I was concerned about that grid building on the southeast side of the map, it's a problem. And the gastropod attacks me, but in the worst possible position. So it's also threatening the grid. I can get 2 problems solved with the artillery mech here. by pushing the gastropod and the alpha mosquito. Trying to gauge how I can deal with that mosquito. So I can push the friendly robot, and then with that speed upgrade, I can kill the mosquito. The only annoyance is I'm leaving behind spiderlings this round. And I take a little bit of self-damage, but it is what it is. Maybe there was a more efficient way to do that, but it's not a huge deal at this juncture. Another gastropod spawns. At least one of the friendly robots is frozen, and is therefore protected for a hit. The gastropods target my mechs, which is good. So there's really only one threat to the grid this turn, the mosquito. But it's in a slightly tricky position. Since I could try to push it with the artillery mech, but then my artillery mech would get hurt by the gastropod pulled adjacent to it, and depending on enemy turn order, it might get destroyed by the alpha gastropod. So it looks like I'm leaning against that play. Once again, boosters, just an amazing ability to have. It basically turns the cannon mech into a sort of duplicate of the artillery mech. It's a ranged, four-directional push, which is just excellent value. And it doesn't require any cores to equip or upgrade. It doesn't have any upgrades. It's perfect the way it is. So I just solved that mosquito problem. The grid is now currently safe. I'm trying to get as much value as I can. A little bit of self-damage, but I kill that spiderling and plug a Vex spawn, which will kill the Scion. And it looks like I elect to just put some extra damage on the Alpha Mosquito in the hopes of finishing it off. Now here we are on the penultimate turn. So 2 threats to the grid. We don't have to worry about the Alpha Gastropod. It'll just break the friendly robot out of the ice. Question is, can I kill the Scion to prevent any more spiderling eggs? So you'll note that I'm looking at my options before I commit to actions. It's never a good idea to commit to actions too hastily. Looks like I'm electing to give the cannon mech some extra XP if it kills the mosquito. Always helpful to try and help any pilots that aren't in the combat mech get kills, as it's a little bit harder for them to get kills early in the game without upgrades. I see a beautiful 2-for-1. The combat mech. Now I don't have to worry about spiderling eggs. Can kill that alpha mosquito safely. And then the artillery mech just needs to wrangle this scarab. So I'll have 3 hostiles on the board for my final turn. You love to see the enemy just attack your mechs. Beautiful. I could just move my mechs out of harm's way and end the mission right here. It's always a good idea, though, to see if you can squeeze a little bit of XP. Sometimes you can't. Just depends. The alpha gastropods are looking maybe a little bit too robust to get a reliable kill on. But it's an easy 2 XP for the combat mech to just kill the scarab. We get a level up, and it's a bummer. +3 grid defense. Perhaps the least useful trait in the game. But we take it. Take any sort of help we can get, and I just close out the round. What I'll do is I will put the other pilot into the combat mech in the hopes of leveling them up quicker. So benching Amelia Clark and putting Sir Hina in the combat mech. Good old Sir Hina, the goat of this run, as we will see in the future. Freeze and defend both robots. This is oftentimes a very favorable mission, but I didn't like where the freeze tank spawned. I thought it was a little bit too out of the way. And the laser mech is trouble in that you can't block its attack. All you can do is reposition it, and it didn't look like there was any good options for repositioning it. So I was feeling like pursuing a different mission. One I thought that had a better chance of success. But I misclick. Whoops. And I commit. It will not be the... It's the first, but certainly not the last misclick. I play on Switch, which usually is fine, but sometimes my muscle memory betrays me. So, now I have to figure out how to salvage the situation. It's especially irritating because I've got mosquitoes on the field. They can go basically wherever they want, and they'll be preventing actions with smoke clouds. So I'm hoping that I can bait the cannon robot into attacking me. I get a lucky targeting with the laser mech, or the laser robot. And 2 threats to the grid. The Alpha Mosquito and the cannon robot, or sentient weapon. The freeze mech is decently fast. I think it has a movement of 4, but it's just so out of the way that it can't reach any of the robots this round on its own movement, which is a bummer. But I believe I cook up a pretty decent solution. I use the artillery mech to push the tank. And look at that. Got my first robot frozen. Got that mosquito out of the way, and the good old boosters lets me not only protect the grid, but also destroy the spider egg scion. Which I keep forgetting what it's called. I'll put that in the comments somewhere. One more mosquito spawns, which is irritating. But still just 2 threats to the grid. Not terrible. The cannon mech is a little bit out of position. But with the boosters, he can get back into a favorable position pretty easily. So he's back in the middle of the board, which is good. Ah, I do a damage and light that mosquito on fire, so it'll die on its own, and I won't have to worry about it. It looks like rather than plugging a spawn, I just want to finish off that alpha mosquito. So I'll have 3 enemies to deal with. The idea being that I have 4 friendly actions, so I have sufficient action advantage that I can solve anything they throw at me. And they do throw something at me. That mosquito is at a very annoying, like, corner position. I have to be very careful, because if I send the friendly frozen robots into the water tile, they'll die. I can push the alpha gastropod into smoke, which will cancel its attack. I'm just trying to see if there is a way to prevent the robot from breaking free. Using the Vec to block the gastropod attack. So I break the robot free, but then I just immediately freeze it back. And then I can block a spawn. So now we'll have 4 enemies in the last round, but 2 of them will be softened up. And I still have the freeze tank in my back pocket. So 2 threats to the grid. Gastropods have a tendency to attack your own mechs, which is nice. Easy kill for the cannon bot, or cannon mech. Serhina gets the level up, and opener. You love to see it. Always a strong choice, especially on a damage-dealing mech, like the combat mech. So just 1 Vec left alive, no big deal. Our perfect run continues. And now we face our boss fight battle. A Scarab leader. Scarabs are usually one of the less troublesome? One of the less troublesome Vex. And the Scarab leader is, it's got health, and it has a 4-directional push for its attack. But it's not too terrible. I'm more worried, honestly, about the mosquitoes that have spawned. And, of course, the ever-annoying spider egg spawning scion. I'm hoping to get the mosquitoes to attack my mechs if I can. It'd be also good if the scarab attacked my mechs. Instead, it targets the grid. And we get a grid, and a grid. Ouch. 3 attacks to the grid is trouble. I'm taking a look at how much damage I can do out of the gate with my opener. And I can't quite do enough to kill the Scarab leader yet. I've got to do something. if I could do a 2-for-1 with push damage on the Scarab Leader and the Mosquito right next to it, that would be ideal. And I think there's a way to do it. The question is, do I see it? It's always different to be spectating my own gameplay when I'm not, in the immediate driver's seat. Sweating bullets. Can I keep this perfect run going? And perfect island going, which is always nice. I see a couple solves. Note how I'm taking my sweet time here, really considering all of the aspects of the battlefield. So I do a little bit of damage, and then I go for generating water tiles. It'll cancel out the leader. It won't drown them. And importantly, I don't kill any enemies this round. So I don't generate any spiderlings. I think I deemed that to be more optimal than going for a kill with spiderlings running around. So 2 threats to the grid. And I think I see a really interesting sol. That gastropod is attacking in the direction of the Scarab Leader. So if I could have the gastropod pull him onto the Vex spawn, it would do 1 damage with the attack, and then the Vex spawn would kill the boss. Kind of doing the work for me. But I've got this mosquito in the way. Once again, artillery mech comes to the rescue. I can get a delicious 2-for-1 by pushing the mosquito next to the Scion, and then finishing them both off with push damage from the combat mech. No spiderlings, no fuss. Beautiful. And now we can finish off the boss by doing nothing. I elect to just get a little bit of damage on the board on the mosquito and the gastropod with friendly fire. The steel judoka would be proud. And now we have a extremely easy penultimate turn with just 2 enemies on the board. But unfair difficulty is unhappy with me and wants to spawn 6 enemies on the board. So got a lot of holes to plug. Interesting. I could have shot the gastropod to plug the hole. Instead, I plug 2 of the spawn points with my own mechs. I think it's because I deemed a already damaged gastropod to be more preferable to still have alive, rather than relying on whatever was going to spawn. But it doesn't really matter, because we're in the clear. Just 3 enemies left, 3 mechs left, and I've got lots of nice water tiles. for a clean board clear. And that wraps up our first island with a perfect score. And it just goes to show you that even with no decent starting pilot and a little bit of luck, you too can get a perfect island on Unfair. I take Lily because I'm down a pilot. I'm going to be selling Carl. And the Void Shocker isn't very good anyway. And then my equipment available is somewhat interesting. Shield Tank is very strong. Flamethrower is just kind of not very exciting. But what I like to do is just sell Carl and buy 4 power cores, which is a lot for the end of the first island. And I figure it would be good to just showcase the base kit of the Riftwalkers as much as I can. So, putting Lily in the combat mech, because she'll level up quickly. And Serhina in the cannon mech, since opener will still be relevant. Lily gets a nice boost to movement at the beginning, so I elect to just give her 2 cores and up the damage on Titan Fist to a really solid 4 damage with a push. And then with my remaining 2 cores, I give them to the cannon mech, because with Serhina's opener, the Taurus cannon does a really nice 3 damage out of the gate, which could be helpful. So that concludes the first island. Stay tuned for the next update as we tackle our next challenge.